Okay, so I'm gonna be using this is a 43 mil round eye shank from Aqua Flies. I cut it down to about 35 mil, maybe. I feel like that's a good length of shank to use. And then for the trailer hook, I'm gonna be using the Ultra Rig. So I'm using 40-pound braid. I have some tubing from the Ultra Rig system, but you could essentially use any type of tubing that you could get at the tackle shop. Just get your smallest set of float tubing, and then, you know, depending on the length that you want to run off the back of your fly, you know, you cut your tubing to that measurement. And then ideally you want to leave, because your shank is actually going to be in the vise by maybe a centimeter or two, you want to account for that, because you're going to actually be wedging the tubing onto the back of the shank so that you can hold everything nice and steady once it's all tied in at the end. So this is a bit up to you in terms of how long of a section of tubing you want to have. It's gonna, you know, obviously we're gonna have it butting up into the eye of the hook a little bit, and then it's gonna be also butted into the back of your shank as well too. So you have to just sort of take that into consideration with how long of a setup you want to run. I'm gonna thread the line up into the tubing like this. Okay, you can see I've got the braid just on the line, and I've got the tubing now through the the line through the tubing, and I'm just going to pull it up. You can see I pulled that through there now. So now that's rigged onto there. Okay. And then all I do is I keep that loop closed like that. Make sure that it doesn't fall off of there. It can slide off if you're running a small enough braid. And then I'm going to grab the hook, and then all I'm going to do is just feed the braid through the eye of the hook like this, and I'll usually just give it a few wraps. And then I'll just cinch it down, right? And then all I do is I pull this tubing up and actually right onto the eye of the hook like this. I'll pull that braid tight. Sometimes I'll just grab some pliers or something to really pull it tight. But generally, once you get that on there, now you can kind of see the idea. That's on there like that now. And then this section is going to be tied onto the shank, and it essentially stays up. And then when you've got your shank here and you got a little bit of your tubing actually wedged onto the end of it, I mean, this is only on there a little bit, but you can see it stays up pretty well. It's a bit of a heavier hook, so it's a size 2, but you could probably run a size 4. I do use size 4s as well too, so you can kind of see how that's going to look kind of at the end. So I'm going to put the shank in the vise here. We'll get started. So we start right up near the eye here. Get a few wraps in. And then I'm going to place my Ultra Rig on now. You can imagine there's a bit of the shank here in the vise, so I want to get my tubing to line up so that I have enough of the shank to actually wedge on once I get this all finished up. So just going to start this like that. Right, just like this. I'm just going to put that to this little hook keeper down here so I don't stab myself. Right. Okay, so that's in there now, and I'm just going to work my way up. And then I'm gonna go through the eye of the hook, or the shank, sorry. Just like that. Capture this down. It's just extra security. I'll make sure I pull that tight, that way I know I have a good opening in the eye here still. And then I'll come back like this. Now put the eyes in. I wanted to have a nice clear surface to tie these in. I didn't want to have to do the eyes first and then try and route the trailer wire. So I'm just gonna do that. That's tied in now. Not right up at the eye, but just a little bit back. We'll work our thread back again and then we can get started. So I'm gonna start with the loop right away. Just work the thread up. Okay, so I blended these two dubbings here. I used the ice dub purple, it's a bit darker, and the disco dub, it's a bit longer than the ice dub. So I think when you blend the two together, you get kind of a longer base for this composite loop. So now I'm also going to grab some angel hair, just a little bit, nothing too crazy, just maybe, I don't know how many strands that is. That, we fold it in half, cut it, and then I'm going to take it and cut it in half again, right onto the loop, like that. And I'm going to just do some more pulls through it like that, get it all blended together. It's going to be kind of messy at first, but it's all right. Just like that, kind of. I'm going to take some Amherst. You could either do this in the loop or not in the loop. I'm just gonna put it in the loop. It's easier. So I don't know how many strands that is. Enough that when it's all in the loop, it's actually gonna have some sort of a presence there. So I'm just gonna lay it right in like this. And I'm kind of imagining that this the center line of the card here is my thread, so I'm kind of trying to lay it as close to the base of the Amherst. I'm trying to lay it as close to the line in the middle as possible. Just separating these out. Just laying them down like that. Take that now, composite loop, and I'm going to place that right in there. I'm not going to worry too much about the butt ends of the Amherst. I think that's pretty good. Just like that, you can kind of see pretty even. Just make sure I can even out the dubbing that's in there, so that spreads evenly. Just kind of like that. Kind of see it like that. That's pretty good. I may end up trimming them off here after, so I'm going to spin this. pick out like that. Good. Give it another small spin. It's not spinning anymore, and I'm taking a toothbrush. It's a firm toothbrush. I'm just gonna comb through it, make sure it's nice and cleaned up. Okay, good. Like this. And palmer it back now. You can use water too. And I'm gonna start to lay this on. Wrap this right into the back. So start to lay this in. One wrap in front of the other. Don't lay it right on top of each other, just keep it nice and close here. Just like that. Catch that in here. These wraps. Another couple twists just to catch it in. Cut this off. I'm gonna take your toothbrush now. Just brush this all out, brush it forward. And brush it back again. There we go. Now you can see here with a pattern like this is pretty similar size. I tied the eyes in at the front, and I think that's a good look too. But you can also have a pattern like this where the eyes are actually tied in at the back. I kind of like the look of the eyes tied into the back, especially if you're already running dumbbell eyes at the front. That kind of almost feels like it defeats the purpose of kind of creating a look of eyes or a hot spot or something like that. So for this one, I'm going to do the eyes on the rear station here, but we're going to do the eyes last. So we're just going to add in a couple more things to this rear station, and then we'll tie in the jungle cock. So next I'm going to grab some ostrich. I'm going to grab about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strands here. Okay. And now I'm kind of picturing my hook is back here, so I can see where my hook is going to sit. And I want these ostrich fibers to reach a good amount past there. This is a bit of a preference thing, but I like there to be some length coming off of the rear station. So I'm going to start in on my side here. I'm going to tie in about, I want to say there.
I'm going to catch those in with a few wraps, and then I'm just going to kind of split them out from kind of top to bottom, and mostly on the side.
And then I'm going to grab another 6 strands, and we'll go to the other side.
Again, same thing, we're going to lay these in, I'm going to just that way. Same thing, we're going to match the length on the other side, and then we're going to catch that in like this. Good, just like that. Catch those in and butt them right up.
Now for the sake of keeping an even body, instead of just cutting these off right here, I'm going to actually wrap and capture all these bases in here pretty much right up to where I'm going to tie in my next station. It's not a huge length there, so I'm just going to cut off the butt ends now, and then I'm going to work back. So now I'm going to put in the jungle cock eyes here on the side. I'm just going to pick 2 matching ones. This is again a bit of a preference thing on how far you want to actually see them reach back. I don't mind them being on the longer side, so I'm just going to catch this in right there on the side, kind of like that, so that they lay nice and flat and they'll show. I'll just catch in this one on this side. Wrap that forward. Just do another quick down and back so that I know everything's even. So there's the rear station done now. I'm grabbing the same saddle that I'm actually going to be using for the horns of the fly at the end, but I'm going to grab one that's a bit on the longer side, and I'm going to tie it in so that I can hackle it up the body. Right there, I'm going to catch it in just on my side. I'm going to wrap it up the body here in a sec. And then I'm going to use a flat braid. This is like a, says, I think it's holographic fuchsia. I was just kind of sticking with the purple-ish theme. I don't have any purple body braid or even any silver or anything like that right now. So just use this. And I'm just going to catch this in. Ideally right where you're about to start to wrap, because you don't want to build up an uneven body. You kind of want to just keep everything nice and even. Come right up to here. And I'm pulling this pretty tight so that I don't have, again, I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be super built up right by the front or rear station. I want to have everything be pretty evenly laid out. Just a little bit behind the eyes, because I still need to build the front station and everything. I'm going to need that room up there, so I'm just going to stop right around there. That's pretty good. Coming behind that. Cut that off. And then I grab this hackle that I tied in. Where I tied off the last piece. A few wraps there. Wraps there. And we have a nice kind of spiny body here. Wraps here, and then we're going to open up another loop so that we can do our next composite loop for the front. And I'm using this trilobal black. It's long, another long fiber. I'm going to take out a little bit more than I would use for the front station, just because I kind of want to have the rear station be smaller and then the back station, or the front station, sorry, be a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to pull some of this out first and do a few stretches here and kind of just get it all blended and laying as long as it possibly can. Right, so you can see that there. And again, I'm imagining that thread line is coming through here once I place it in the composite loop. So I'm just laying this portion of it 50-50 right now. So I'm going to use some angel hair again, but I have some in black and red. It's mostly black, which is kind of what I'm going for here at the front. The red will look kind of cool too, but I'm really just looking for some longer fibers to mix into the loop that go along with the color scheme here. So I'm just going to cut that, place that onto there, and place that in too. I'm going to stretch these. Again, just blend them. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just get it nicely blended. I'm going to stretch it out a little more here. I want to lay it a little longer because I need to put ostrich into here as well. So I'm just going to kind of grab about maybe as long as my scissors here, if you can imagine. I'm going to cut off, you know, that length of feather. So I've pinched a few already. Just kind of keep pinching as many as you can and cut them off. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of pinch them on my hand here and lay them on. Try to get them laid out as evenly as possible. And I'm imagining that center line again. I don't want the butts sticking too far back, otherwise I'm probably going to want to go in and trim them after. So just going to lay them pretty close to that center line, just like that. And then I'm just going to grab a little bit more of this tri-lobo dub. I just need like a little bit just to like lay it on top. That way I can pinch this, or I can just squish this down like that, and then I can actually place it in the composite loop for this next step. I'm going to grab it off the card and try and just pinch it as evenly as possible, and I'm going to place it into the thread here again, just like we did with the rear one. And that one cooperated really well. So you can see that in there now. The butt ends of the ostrich are fairly short. I'll just pull them, I'm pulling them this way a bit so that there's not a bunch of tag ends for the ostrich that I put in there. Okay, so just like that. And then same thing, I'm just going to pinch the thread and spin this up. Okay, just like that. Okay, so give that another spin. So I'm going to take some water now. Just hold my thread and palmer it back. You could do something here before this loop if you really wanted something to prop this against, but I find with the thickness of all the material in this loop, it's going to have enough of a profile as is. So I'll just start wrapping this in like that. I'll do a couple right on top, one on top of the other, to kind of simulate a bit of like a dubbing bump there. But if you want to just do a dubbing ball there first and then do this, you could. So I do a few wraps one on top of the other, and then I'll start wrapping forward towards the eyes. And I want to try and finish off this loop behind the eyes. So I'm already butted up against them, so I am wrapping kind of one on top of the other at this point, but that's okay. And then I'll take the toothbrush now and go through like this. You can see it already starting to come together pretty nicely. There. Nice, that looks pretty good. Nice and sparse. I always like if I can see the body. If I can see the body through the front station, that's how I usually know I did a good job of kind of controlling the amount of material that I put into the front station. It's pretty easy to just add that little bit too much, and then it just doesn't look so good, in my opinion. But everyone has their own ways of kind of tying these. Okay, so now I'm going to add some flash here. So I'm using a Krystal Flash in black. It's pretty cool. Krystal Flash is always a nice flash to use. So I'm going to cut off a section that's probably about as long as the fly itself, but I'm actually going to bend it in half. So I'm just going to pull some of these on the butt end so that it lays out nicely. So I'm going to tie it in like this, halfway. And then I'm going to grab this and I'm going to just put this over. It's almost like a little wing on the top. I'm just going to kind of trim some of the bottom ones so that it tapers a bit nicer. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some, this is some Krinkle Flash, New Age Winter Run Blue. So I'm just going to grab out a few. I want to say I'm going to grab like 2 or 3 strands. I'm going to pull them all the way out. They're pretty long here. And I'm going to use 2 strands on each side because they're pretty long. So I'm going to lay this in on the side, half and half. And I'm going to catch this in and fold it back. So
Flash on that side. Catch this out on my side quick. Fold it back.
we got our flash incorporated in there now. almost done. There's only a couple more steps here. I'm just gonna wet this. And now we're gonna add in the horns are the same length and size. Okay. I'm gonna grab the first one here. I'm gonna lay it in. I like them to reach about as far back as maybe the longest ostrich. That's just a preference. I know some people like to have them a bit shorter. I've seen them super long as well too. I kind of like when they're tied in about as long as the ostrich on the back station. So I'm gonna catch this in like that. 1, 2, 3 wraps, just seeing that it's laying good. Yep, looks good. That looks pretty good. So I'm gonna do a couple more wraps here behind the eye, and then I'm actually gonna sneak forward, and I'm catching the butt ends of these hackle feathers right in front of the eyes. Like I don't want these to pull out because it's kind of the main part of the fly that makes it look really good. So I'll usually do a couple wraps there and really catch it in before I cut off the ends. Last step is, you can do this with like a fur if you really want, or if you want to do it with dubbing, you can do, I did that with this fly here. You can see I did, I ended everything pretty much right behind the eyes, and then I used a bit of I think it's like a rabbit's fur or something, some sort of dubbing, just to kind of clean up this little area so there isn't a big space. But for this one I'm going to use a Schlappen feather. So I'm going to grab a bit of the spiny stuff. I like the length of this one, and I'm also going to grab a bit of the softer stuff that looks a bit like marabou. So I'm going to strip that off here. I'm going to come up a little bit into the spiny stuff here, and then I'm going to just tease that back, and then I'll cut off here and I'll tie in. Just tying that in on my side, it's easier to see. And I'll just tie in like that, and I'll leave everything. I'll leave my thread behind the eye still. Just gonna grab these hackle pliers. I'm just gonna tie this in, wrap this in like you normally would. Good, just like that. So I'm gonna catch this in now. Let that go. Just kind of doing a figure 8 tie in here, kind of around the eyes, just so I know I catch it in. And I'll just do a couple wraps in front of the eyes here just to make sure that it's really captured in well. And then I'll go right to the whip finish. Just do that a few times. Perfect, just like that. There we go. I'll finish with some head cement as well too, but I'm just going to quickly go through like this, get everything kind of freed up. I don't like to go too hard, kind of back against all these nice fibers that I've just tied in, but I will just kind of lightly fluff everything up here just so I know everything's freed up. I don't like to rough up the jungle cock feathers especially, but there we go. Just touch it off here, and I'll kind of open it up, and I'll try and, well, I won't try, I'll just make sure that I pull some of the tubing back. It's really hard for you guys to see it here. Obviously the camera angle is not going to show it that well. but I just basically pull some of the tubing back and then wedge it over that piece of the shank that was in the vise, and then that way, once that's actually tied on there, you can see I'm holding the hook stays nice and straight with the tubing. This is a size 2 hook, so it's going to kind of droop a little bit, but generally speaking, like in the hang down or anything like that, the hook is going to stay nice and straight, and if a fish comes and grabs it, it should get hooked. So yeah, there's a black and purple intruder. Thanks for watching.